Blessed day, soul family, earth family. Aren't we in a doozy? Well, I'm definitely in a doozy because my computer crashed today, and I'm making this video from my phone and doing this from the phone, uploading from the phone. But you know, we do what we can. We roll with the punches. We surf the waves. We transition and move and flow as best we can. Do we not? It is Resolution Thursday. So this week we've been talking about the Qigong of relationship. We've been talking about emotional bondage. And on Thursdays we talk about conflict. We talk about resolution. A lot of theory, not some strategies or practices. But I'm putting together a Qigong for relationship outline so I can organize all of this. But what we're thinking about today is yesterday we talked about in terms of wellness and the domains of wellness. Is it possible to take a view on war in a way that we can learn from it? In the same way that a martial artist learns from their peers, when the teacher's correcting you, you don't wait for them to come around and correct you. You correct yourself by listening to the corrections that your teacher is giving. So we learn this in martial arts practice. You know, that would be a good student thing to do. So you're maximizing your teacher's energy and effort and time and with yours, right? And in the same way, when we look at global conflict, it could be a local conflict. How do we correct and adjust ourselves so that we're not perpetuating more conflict in our sphere of influence, but doing our best to practice, promote, and propagate peace within our sphere of influence? So remember, martial arts is a dispute resolution system within the physical domain, while in civil society, the police, the citizens on patrol, neighborhood watches, those programs and systems prevent as best they can physical combat, but we see, you know, people deciding to engage in that way. And in terms of self-defense, the first rule of defense is to not be there, not be where the target, not to be a target, and not to be where the target can get you. Even still, it's difficult to completely avoid conflict. We run into conflict in our lives. If you're active, if you're working, if you're in school, if you're a human being, you will be subjected to some sort of conflict. And the question is how are you learning to live with that in life? It seems like that's a part of this realm. In terms of spiritual conflict, we may want to live forever. We may want to enjoy happiness, health, and life and living, but eventually we also have a death cycle that goes along with our life cycle. A lot of things are temporary. A lot of things come to an end. Relationships, and that's the hard thing. That's one of the hard things about life and living, is that we will see our loved ones pass away. We will ourselves pass away as well as a loved one. And this brings us to emotional bondage. Remember that the 4 phases of liberation and freedom are self-recognition, self um, awareness, self-awakening, and then liberation from spiritual bondage. This we can look at in terms of over our lifetime pursuing enlightenment and liberation. Um, but we can also see this in terms of our local conflict, the conflicts that we come into contact with in our everyday lives when we're doing, we're just trying to bloom and be our happy best self. But sometimes we run into conflicts. So that's a part of life and living, and that can be hard and tough, and that can tug on our heartstrings, as the saying goes, and it can also stimulate our emotional mind. When our minds are ruminating with thought that we can't shake, that we can't seem to grasp or gain control of, we call it a knot, like a mental knot. In Mandarin, it's called nian. And our heart mind is called the shin. We're asked to regulate the shin upon 5 regulations of the body, breath, mind, energy, and spirit. Shin, there's shin and shen, but shin is the emotional heart mind. And we learn to regulate that or blend that with the horse wisdom mind so as to free ourselves from emotional bondage. If we can't, so for example, when we're sitting, if we're sitting in meditation, we have to, in order to clear our channels and in order to embody ease, peace, and stillness, we can't be disturbed by the mind, we can't be disturbed by the heart, and you also can't be disturbed by the gut. That's why you want to have something in your stomach either. So even in meditation sessions, you want to have all your needs met, and there's a lot of times you have to be the one that can give yourself the love, the care, the nourishment that you need, and that's in the domain of the heart and in the mind. So we have to, when we say regulate the monkey mind, regulate the emotional mind, and free ourselves from emotional blockage, we say give the monkey a banana, and the banana is breath. Breath is our strategy, because breath is used as a strategy in Qigong to regulate the Qi, and the Qi is affected by the mind, so breath can be used to regulate the mind. So for example, there's a technique called returning to back to childhood breathing. There's deep abdominal breathing, ocean breath, all of these names that have come from our ancient modalities to have give us the tools we need to live in a difficult life when there's challenges. So the emotional part, the emotional mind, the emotional thinking, emotional disturbance, as we find ourselves in being bombarded with the news of today and of these days, at the brink of possibly a world war, we look at the opportunity to practice the emotional mind, regulating the mind and restoring and stabilizing and keeping in balance psychological center. So the question is, though, what does it feel like? What does it feel like? So in terms of Qigong of relationship and Nature Gong Fu, the Gong Fu of internal vision and the Gong Fu of self and self-knowing, there's a whole process to that. There's a Qigong, what I would say, of self-relationship. And in many ways, Qigong is about relationship. So we have this whole journey that we go through in our self-relationship that gives us the basis for external relationship. And when we talk about energy that's outside starting to go outside of our individual self, we call that grand circulation. So there's small circulation channels and practices within the small universe. Our heaven energy, man energy, and earth energy is considered the small universe amidst the large universe. Within our small universe, we have a small microcosmic orbit that we meditate on and practice on. And then when we start to get outside of our selves, we call it grand circulation energy. And understand that we can, let's say we go to an ocean and we're looking and enjoying nature, we can call that grand circulation, gathering the herb of nature. We can call grand circulation in martial Qigong hard Qigong and tensing up the muscles and the fascia and the bones for a structure, and saying this is also a part of grand circulation because it's coming, we're manifesting energy, it's coming out of vessels into meridians and streams. So when we look at then somatic practices and opportunities, there's the opportunity for healing and circulation of energy and reflection and improvement. Yesterday we talked about the concept of war as medicine and taking the lessons of trauma and the trials and the tears of war so that we do what we can to prevent war in the future. And the way that we can prevent war, the best way that we can prevent war in the future, is to propagate peace in our spheres of influence as best we can. I would say that is a part of morality of mind and morality of deed, and it's also part of a grand circulation where you are giving your energy to the outside world. Could be to friends, family, community, or if you're a political leader, a statesman, or something of that. You're giving your energy, and plus, if you're a contemplative, a meditator, you are meditating and reflecting on how to be responsive in rather than reactive with your heart, your mind, and your gut. So back to emotional bondage for freedom and liberation. We know that healing one's traumas and is beneficial to show up as our bests. And we can go to social emotional learning and research and practices. Mindfulness research supports the idea that I just don't want to say healing trauma, but going through a journey where you're in a self-contemplative and reflection process to learn how to improve your thoughts, improve your speech, and improve your action. That we could say is definitely a movement of a lot of energy, movement of your heart energy, movement of your thinking energy, a movement of your gut energy, and a movement of your whole body. So we could say that freedom from emotional bondage is connected to peace practice and peace manifestation, peace thinking, peace speaking, and peace action. So I think we'll stop there for today because I just don't want to ramble on too long about it, but I wanted to introduce the concept of emotional bondage, free and enlightenment and liberation, but we can have moments of enlightenment and liberation in our daily lives, and even in the moments where we desire to be free. So going back to the question of what we feel like. And so when we're looking for ways to restore balance, recenter, and mitigate, prevent conflict, and even restore or rehabilitate conflict, we have this ancient knowledge to draw back on. But then, what do the real practices and skills look like when you're challenged? We talked about comfort zone, learning zone, panic zone. When you come out of, when you're out of your comfort zone and you're in the moment and you're not feeling free, liberated from your emotional bondage, but maybe you feel like you're thick in the mud, right? This would be the opposite of liberated, free from emotional bondage, but you're thick in the mud. And the classics talk about the lotus that rises up from the deep mud. Oftentimes, life can feel in our conflicts and our relationships can feel heavy like mud. They can feel sticky. They can feel tight and tense. And they feel like unfinished business, right? When we think about death meditation, going to the other side, the grand beyond, we want to be free of the heaviness of any emotional disturbance because we want to be able to pass on smoothly to the other side. Otherwise, the emotion, the strong emotion, strong hurt, strong pain that humans go through, that keeps us trapped, keeps our souls trapped, right? So you can think of um, heavy duty trauma that people go through, how that affects their spirit, their ability to pass on to the other side when they witness such injustice, such trauma, had to live through such trauma. Being able to forgive those who have trespassed, right? So going to the the um, our Lord's Prayer, forgive those who have trespassed against us, as we forgive those, um, forgive those who trespass against us. Yeah. So this is how emotional bondage is connected to death, liberation, and freedom. But in terms of resolving our conflicts that are coming up in our everyday lives, our minds, like a bad dream, when we're when we're looping in bondage, and it's draining our energy and keeping us in a low frequency, we need a liberation, and we need to break the chains of that emotional bondage, so that we can be of our highest selves, right? So we'll go look into that tomorrow. We'll continue with Fearless Friday, because it's challenging to engage in conflict, and it you put your neck out there and you extend your hand to shake the hand of another, and sometimes they're just not willing. But if we want to learn how to mitigate war on the planet and not contribute to the war on the planet, we need to learn how to contribute to the peace on the planet, rebalance. Remember, embrace the woo, and may your chi flow smoothly.